Did you just get an Xbox Ally for Christmas? If so, then you're in the right place, Buster, because it's your new or maybe old buddy Zoo here, and today we're going to talk about the Xbox Ally and how to set it up. This came out about 2 months ago, but they just dropped the price to a little bit under $500, so I would assume there are a lot more people waking up with this under their Christmas tree. With that in mind, I decided to make a quick guide on how to configure the Xbox Ally, maybe some quick tips to improve performance from stock, and how to set this thing up for emulation, in addition to playing a ton of x86 games through Xbox or Steam. This thing isn't as simple as something like a Steam Deck or a Legion Go S right out of the box, and if you're a longtime viewer, you probably know how to do all these things, but if this is your first x86 handheld, or you opened up a present from Santa expecting a mobile Xbox experience, you'll be in for a surprise. You can get there, and I'll show you, but it takes an hour or 3 to run a bunch of disconnected updates. So go hit the Whiz Palace, maybe grab some milk and cookies on the way back, maybe a ham sandwich, and settle in for a comprehensive guide on the ROG Xbox Ally. Ooh. Now before we start, I have time-stamped the hell out of this video, so if you already did your Windows updates and your Armory Crate stuff, then feel free to jump to the tips or the emulation section or whatever. It won't hurt my feelings. You might miss some sweet dad jokes though. Alright, let's start with Windows setup. Now if you're getting this from scratch, you just took it out of the box, you're going to need to do all of the normal Windows setup stuff. Got to set your language, choose your Wi-Fi, pick your location, set your keyboard, plug in your email address, all that jazz. I already did that 2 months ago when I got this, so I'm not going to do a step-by-step, but it's pretty easy. Microsoft basically TurboTaxed the process so you cannot mess it up. But once you're into Windows on your Ally, you're going to need to update from at least 4 different locations, which is kind of stupid. In comparison, a SteamOS device just updates from the settings. Bada bing, bada boom. But for the Ally, you got 4 options. You're going to want to check for updates in Windows itself, in Armory Crate, in the MyASUS system, and then in the Microsoft Store / Xbox app. So ideally, if you start this up and there are updates, you're going to get some pop-ups. You're going to get some notifications down here. It's going to say, update available. And these pop-ups will typically take you to the correct location to do the update. So this opened up the Microsoft Store, and it's taking me to update my Xbox app. But that's not always the case, so we're going to do it all from scratch as if you don't have any notifications. So first off, let's go with Armory Crate. You hit this little recycle button up here. You're going to open up Armory Crate. Armory Crate updates your drivers. Shut up. Armory Crate updates your drivers, your BIOS, and your firmware, which is why I'd probably suggest doing it first. Oh, and by the way, I have my Ally plugged into the wall, and you're going to want to have it plugged in for all of these, but especially for Armory Crate, because if you run out of power while you're updating your firmware, that would be bad. Make sure you're in the settings, and you hit Update Center. I would strongly suggest you have Automatic Essential Update turned on because it will slowly start to update things as you have this powered on and idle. But regardless, you are going to want to hit Check for Updates, and it's going to, weirdly enough, check for updates. Now it might take a minute to check against the databases and load all the available updates, but when it's done, you're going to want to install anything you have available to you. It could be GPU drivers, BIOS updates, firmwares, whatever. You can do that by hitting buttons like Update All. Downloading. And as you download all your device and component stuff, you do want to keep in mind you're probably going to have to come back up here and separately update the UWP app and core service. You can see here we have a BIOS update, we have a firmware update, we have a graphics driver update, we have a Windows Dynamic Lighting plugin update, I don't know what that is, and then you have an Armory Crate update. We're going to do that next once everything else is updated. This is kind of a recurring theme, but updating this is going to take a while. It's going to take a lot longer maybe than it should, and it's definitely not going to be as seamless as you would get with something like a Steam Deck. But at its core, this still is a Windows device, so you got to expect a little bit of hinkiness. Now the name of the game, especially if you haven't updated stuff in a while, is patience. It's going to take a while to download, it's going to take a while to install, and it's going to take a while to go through Armory Crate and the other 3 separate update things you have to do. Just be patient. I guess it's done. Yes? Just be patient. And now we're updating Armory Crate itself. Alright, I think everything's updated, but let's go back into Update Center. Check for updates again, just to verify that we are up to date on everything. Apparently we are not. All right, so let's update everything again. Remember, the name of the game is patience. It shouldn't take the better part of 3 hours to make sure everything's up to date, but it does sometimes. Oh well. And because this is Windows, you're probably going to see this prompt more than once. So let's just keep restarting. I'm trying to upgrade it. So this is what happens when you put off upgrades for the better part of a month and a half. They pile up, especially with a brand new device. You might also encounter a screen like this in the middle of your updates and your restart. And this is the BIOS itself being updated. You definitely want to make sure you don't unplug it or run out of juice while this is happening. Just let it go and come back in a couple minutes.
Much later.
Okay, after 3 update cycles, you can see there's nothing left to update. So next, let's update Windows. To get to these updates, you have to hold down the Xbox button and switch to desktop mode. Whoa. And in your start menu, select Settings. From Settings, you're going to want to go down to Windows Update and install all of them. Good Lord, I haven't checked this since November 6th. Oops. Okay, now you're going to want to download and install all of them. Now, while these are downloading, and it's going to tell me to restart here in a minute, I also want to go down to the bottom and click on this shopping bag, which is going to open up the Microsoft Store. Once you're in the Microsoft Store, you're going to want to go down to this Downloads icon, and then you're going to want to check for updates. This is where you update additional apps, and if there is an Xbox update, it will also update the Xbox app and any related dependencies. The Microsoft Store is also going to cover some of the MyASUS stuff, and it's important to check in here to make sure you push any updates that are live. And as you're going through all these updates, again, make sure that you are plugged in and make sure you're using the brick that came with your Ally. If you have a brick that pushes more power, that's fine. But you don't want to grab a power brick that cannot keep up with the power draw of the Ally. You don't want to walk away thinking you're almost done, only to come back to a partially bricked device. All right, that is done, and now we're going to restart, hopefully, for the final time, and get all of our updates done. All right, now that we're done with our updates, let's talk about how to get your games. You can get them from Xbox 2 different ways, either downloading locally or streaming them on Game Pass, or you can get them from a storefront, such as Steam. Now, when you bought this or you received this as a gift, I think you should have received at least 3 months of free Game Pass. So hopefully you still have that. If not, it's not going to be as effective if you don't have a Game Pass subscription. But let's presume you do have Game Pass. We're going to go over here to Game Pass. See, I have Game Pass Ultimate, which means I have 400 plus games to get. So let's just scroll down and see what we got. Ooh, Bratz. You know I want to play that, but actually I don't want to play that. So let's keep looking. Let's get Marvel Cosmic Invasion. Now in the Game Pass hub here, you're going to see a couple things. First and foremost up here, you see a notification. This is going to work great on your device, and it's handheld optimized. It has a meta score of 81, so people seem to like it. It is a new release. It's 10% off, which is largely irrelevant because I have Game Pass, and it is Xbox Play Anywhere. You can do this in one of 2 ways. You can install it locally, or you can play it on the cloud. Now, if you choose to play it on the cloud, it should just launch into Game Pass, and you'll be up and running. See? Easy peasy. If you're sitting somewhere that's got a rock-solid connection, and you don't want to worry about throwing stuff onto the internal storage, this isn't a bad way to do things. But say you're going to go on vacation. Say you want to be able to play this with no Wi-Fi, or maybe you use the hotel Wi-Fi to make sure you got all the updates. You don't want to have to stream it the entire time. You can go over here and just install it. It only requires 560 megabytes. That's not bad. We're going to install it just on the C drive. Next, install, and it's downloading. And once that's done, it'll be installed. And 100% downloaded, ready to play. Get a little notification. It says, hey, it's there. Hit play. It'll launch. Boom. Running locally. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Let's go world mind. I don't know what that means. I guess I'll find out as I play this game.
Double tap left or right to sprint in that direction.
Okay. Whoa! He's not sprinting, he's flying.
Button multiple times to combine your attacks.
Get wrecked. No, Zoo, you're getting distracted. Get out of there. So if you want to just live in the Xbox ecosphere, you're done. But say you want to install something from your Steam library. Say you may have been a Steam member for going on 20 years and you already have a lot of stuff on there. You want to access it. A couple ways you can do it, but the easiest way I found is to press this recycle bin button, get into your quick menu here, go over to home, and then just go to Steam. It's going to open up Steam, and from here, you'll be able to install any of the Steam games you already have purchased. Ooh, the Game Awards. Even though I've met Geoff personally, I'm not worried about that right now. We're going to our library, and we're going to get some games to download. Oh, what do I want to play? Oh, let's see here. Got a Marvel beat 'em up. Might as well do a Ninja Turtles beat 'em up. What else can I put on here? Tales of Symphonia. Yeah, let's put that on there too. It supports my Xbox controller. Installed on my C drive, and we just wait for it to install. All right, now that's all downloaded and installed, go back to your Xbox, go back to your home. You can go to My Games, and you can see that game you added. Where'd it go? There it is, Tales of Symphonia. It's in with all your other games as part of the full screen experience. How do you like them apples? And this is the same steps you would use for Epic Games Store or Ubisoft or, I don't know, any other storefront you might be using. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. It's installing DirectX for me. Thank you. Thank you very much, Tales of Symphonia. Da 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 da. Let's turn this anime music down a little bit. So now that you got games running on here, say you're playing them and things seem a bit off. Maybe your stick is off or your triggers or your buttons are off. Well, you can also calibrate your controls. Now my controls on this worked fine out of the box, but our old buddy Stubbs had some issues with his analog sticks, and this is actually a way to try to fix them before you take it back to Best Buy in disappointment for the 5th time. You're going to want to go to Armory Crate, so hit that recycle button, open Armory Crate, and you're going to want to go down here to calibration. Let's pretend like our left stick doesn't work. So you need to press A to start calibration. Release the joystick, and then press A to reset it to its central position, okay? Push it over here until it changes to red. Whoop. Easy, down. Easy, left. Easy, up. Easy. Now you gotta rotate it in a large circle 3 times. And then once that's done, you have hopefully solved any issues, any minor issues you may have noticed with precision or even some slight stick drift. Look at how precise that is. It's a tack driver. All right, so next we're gonna talk about maximizing your full screen experience. From the get-go, I was honestly expecting a little bit more from this, and I'd kind of assumed it would be basically a Microsoft version of Steam Big Picture Mode. And it was, but it also wasn't. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that you can only de-Windows a Windows device so much. But to their credit, ASUS and Microsoft have continued to push out fixes, and with some tweaks here and there, you can get pretty close to a console-esque experience. It's good, but it's not great. And honestly, I think my major complaint is that they haven't added the Xbox 360 Blade interface on here. But that's just something I'm personally going to have to keep bringing up to our ASUS contacts, no matter how much they tell me to stop. One of the things I wanted to talk about was that sometimes when you press the Xbox button, it would open up Armory Crate. And by God, it's not doing it anymore. And you know why? Because they fixed it. In one of the 17 updates I had to go through, someone over there said, you know what, Zoo? We are going to fix it for you, so you don't have to do a workaround. So we're just going to cut out the entire workaround from this video because, to their credit, ROG, ASUS, someone at Microsoft fixed it already. Pretty cool. One thing that's fixed on my machine, because I already fixed it myself, but it might be something you have to configure yourself, is non-Xbox games showing on here. So there's 2 Steam games showing right there. I think from the get-go it doesn't do that. So the way to set it is to go to your little profile picture, go to Settings, Library and Extensions, and you're going to want to make sure that all these different things are enabled. So EA, Steam, Ubisoft, whatever you got on there, make sure they are enabled and they will display in your library. Pretty cool. Along the same lines, there's a widget called One Game Launcher, and I recommend it if you're going to be playing any sort of standalone Windows games or programs or emulators that don't come through a storefront. In order to turn that on, you got to hit the recycle button, go to Command Center, go all the way over to your widgets, and you're going to want to go down to One Game Launcher. It's free. You install it. Just takes a couple seconds. It's free, it's safe, and it works. Okay, now that it's installed, you should be all the way on the end here in your widget section. Go down to One Game Launcher. Got it. Got it. You're going to want to hit this 3-bar thing up here. Scroll to Custom. And then to add an EXE, you just hit Add. You can find the path. You can give it a title. So let's find Eden. Where do I have Eden installed on here? Oh, God. There you go, Eden. Sometimes when you're using this, it gets minimized. All you got to do is go back to the widget thing, and it's fine. Put your title in. Say Eden. Okay. And let's just do that for now. And there you go. Now you have your Eden in there alongside all your other games. Now it's not seamless. It doesn't add it to the list of the other games you have on the full screen experience, you know, like you'd see in SteamOS, which is kind of a pain, but it is a lot easier than bouncing out on the bottom to desktop mode. So basically, to launch a standalone game like that, again, you hit this recycle button, go over here to your widget, your One Game Launcher widget, and now you can scroll through all the games you have on your machine. You can even open up a calculator. How do you like that? It's kind of cool, but it is kind of a workaround. And honestly, I hope this kind of functionality gets incorporated into the default full screen experience as we go forward. And then one last thing I want to mention is gaming Copilot, because I thought it was stupid. I thought just in general, oh, they put AI on here just to have AI. But it is pretty cool because you can actually ask it questions about your games. So if you're in a game, open up Command Center, go to Gaming Copilot, and you can just verbally ask it questions. So say you're bouncing off a boss in an RPG, but you don't want to stop what you're doing and get out your phone and look up a guide. You can just ask it questions like, hey, in Final Fantasy VI, what is Dalai Lama weak against?
So, Zoo Reviews, to circle back on that, in Final Fantasy VI, the enemy Dalai Lama is indeed weak to poison attacks. That's the made element that'll give you an advantage against him. So definitely stack up on those kind of spells or items if you're squaring off with him. So what's next on your list? Anything else in the game you're prepping for, or are you on to the next big thing?
I'm actually recording a YouTube video about the Ally right now, so goodbye.
All right, Zoo Reviews, go crush that YouTube recording. I'll be here if you need any more gaming insights or just want to chat later.
Okay. Okay, I love you. Thank you. Bye.
You got it, Zoo Reviews. Take care and have fun with that video. I'm here whenever you want to dive back in.
Shut up. You can also ask it for help with settings. So say I'm playing Spider-Man and it's kind of chugging. I can ask, hey, what are the best settings for 60 FPS on Spider-Man Remastered for the Xbox Ally?
Alright, Zoo Reviews. So for getting Marvel Spider-Man Remastered, running at a sweet 60 FPS on your Xbox Ally, here's a general rundown. You might want to keep the resolution at around 1080p, run the graphics preset on medium, and enable AMD FSR 2.1 in performance or balance mode to help stabilize those frames. Also, turning down crowd density and a few other details like shadows to low can give you that extra boost. With that, you should get pretty close to that 60 FPS sweet spot. How's that sound, and how's the video coming along?
It sounds really great. Thank you. That's all I need. Thank you very much. How are you? Goodbye.
You're so welcome, Zoo Reviews. I'm doing awesome over here, and I'm glad I could help out.
Shut up.
Best of luck.
So that's kind of creepy, but also kind of cool. There are also a few other things you can do to maximize your performance as well, and luckily, they're nested in Armory Crate, and they don't need a lot of Hackerman overclocking or editing INI files or any other weird stuff you used to have to do with PCs. So you open up Armory Crate. Your first step is to reallocate just a little bit of virtual RAM. So go to the Performance tab, go to GPU Settings. You're going to want to make sure it's set to 6. I think by default it's 4. You're going to want to make sure it's set to 6. If you have the Ally X, I think the default is 8. You can bump that up to 10. This really helps with games that are kind of at the cusp with the basic amount of RAM. It helps just a little bit of a push. Sometimes that's all you need. Another thing you can do in this Performance tab is under Eco Assist. And you can mess with your CPU boost and your TDP profiles. I'd recommend leaving CPU boost off if a game is running fine, because having it turned on draws a lot more power and drains the battery. However, if you are struggling with something, you can push a little more power at the cost of battery life using CPU boost. And if you're docked or you're sitting with a plug nearby, just turn it on and don't worry about it. You don't have to go to this setting every time. You can pin it in your command center. It's not there by default, so you hit this little edit button down here, scroll to the bottom, and you're going to want to add CPU boost. And now it's going to be automatically a part of your command center, and you can turn it off and on the fly. Pretty cool. You'll also notice here that by default you get a couple of performance profiles: Windows, Silent, Performance, and Turbo mode. But you can use this Eco Assist menu to make custom ones as well. So if you're playing old NES games on here like a lunatic, you can set up a super low power draw profile. Although you can't get super low without making Windows itself kind of crap the bed. Conversely, if you're playing something that's chugging a bit at 17 TDP, but going wild at the turbo setting, you can fine tune it to maybe a 20 or 25 watt TDP preset, and you can get that better frame rate or push better graphics, but you're not going to draw as much power as you would on full-blown turbo mode. Now this one is highly situational depending on what you're playing, but regardless, the way to do it is to go to operating mode, and you tap manual mode, and you're going to get a bunch of options. Yes, I know. Don't show this again. Thank you. So in manual mode, you get a bunch of options where you could set it to, say, 20 watts here. There are 2 bars. The first one is your standard draw, and you can go all the way down to 4 or up to 20 watts. So since we want something that's a little bit more powerful than that 17 watt setting, we're going to set our first one to 20. This second one here is temporary boosting. I think it's over like a 2-minute window. You can bump up, looks like here, to 24 max. This is like war emergency power in old fighter planes. It's a little bit extra oomph when you need it. I'm going to set our power mode to best performance. You can even change the fan profiles if you want. You can apply. It's going to give you a lot of warnings in case you accidentally set this thing too high. Yeah, I get it. And you can even go in here and rename it. So we're going to call this zoo mode. There you go. And then if I'm in a game, I know I can go all the way over here to manual, and it's zoo mode, where I go back to turbo or performance or what have you. But I can go zoo mode if I need to. I just like that it's called zoo mode. And again, on the fly, you can go to all these different profiles depending on if you want to save battery life. Speaking of battery life, there is one more setting. It's under battery care. You can turn on battery care mode, which basically only lets you charge it to 80% to reduce long-term battery wear. This is good if you're going to have this thing plugged into a dock all the time. I have a device, my One X Player 2, where the battery is starting to swell and push the screen out, which is not great. So I kind of like the idea of this, but honestly, I'm probably not going to use this. I'd rather have more battery life over the short run. But I tell you what, if this is going to be like a 5-year device for you, it is something to think about. Although that being said, iFixit has a guide on how to replace the battery in these things. So if you do end up pushing it too far, you can always just replace it. It's not that hard. Now there's a lot more you can do in Armory Crate, and I have an older video on the channel about that if you're interested. But for now, let's move on to emulation. Okay, so there are 2 main ways to set this up as an emulation device, and they're kind of similar to what you would do with a Steam Deck. You can have an all-around emulation experience with EmuDeck, and I'll show you how to do that. And then, since it's Windows, you can just install separate emulators. I'll show you how to do that with Eden as well. So this is going to be a really basic tutorial on EmuDeck that'll show you what you need to do to get EmuDeck up and running on your Ally or your Ally X. I'll leave a link to Russell Decor's 30-minute guide in the description if you run into any issues. But my tutorial here should be enough to get you up and running in a few minutes. Installing EmuDeck is pretty easy, especially since the Ally is a Windows PC. You can do it all on the device itself. First, you're going to want to open up your web browser and go to emudeck.com. You might want to use a USB-C keyboard for this, but it's doable using the on-screen keyboard as well, and that's what I'm doing here. It's really just a preference thing. On the EmuDeck website, there are 4 options. You're going to want to select Windows and then download the latest file. Windows might try to stop you from running this. It's trying to protect you, but your old buddy Zoo says this one's okay. So just click More Info and then allow the installation. It'll pop around a bit, potentially installing any dependencies you might have been missing from the Microsoft Store, and then it'll finally just install EmuDeck. You'll eventually get to a Welcome to EmuDeck window with an Easy Mode or a Custom Mode option. If you're just looking to set this thing up to play games without a lot of messing around, go with Easy Mode. But Custom Mode isn't super complicated, so I'll show you that route here. Custom Mode also lets you set up aspect ratios, bezels, and cool stuff like cloud saves and retro achievements. Next, you'll be prompted to select a ROM directory. This is going to show your hard drives and any SD cards you have plugged in. If you already have a SD card with ROMs, then just be sure to select that and it'll bring over your files quite easily. Next, it'll ask you what device you're using, and you select ROG Ally. Next up is your front end selection. There are options, but I just went with Emulation Station DE. If this was a generic PC, I'd maybe lean towards Steam, but I want to just have a standalone launcher that I can chuck onto a widget. Right off the bat, it asks you to pick a theme, so let's zoom through here. Let's do Iconic. Now you can pick what emulators you want. RetroArch is a must, and then you can be selective about what standalones you need. So for instance, if you're not going to play DS or 3DS, don't click Melon DS or Azahar, that sort of thing. I'm going to pick everything but PrimeHack, MAME, Flycast, and that weird GBA one down there. I'll also exclude Regunix, but I will snag Eden later. Next, it's going to ask you what you want configured, and I'd honestly select all of them because the configuration files are very, very small, very quick to install. Now we're deep into configuration options. You got autosave, retro achievements, bezels, aspect ratios. If you're going to play stuff in 4x3 or 1x1, I'd turn the bezels on. They just make classic retro games look good on a wide screen. You can also throw on shaders, which I enabled, and then you can set your resolutions. They're all set to 1080p, which is fine on this screen. You can mess around if you're planning on docking it, but anything past 1080p is frankly overkill. Installation can take a while, depending on if you already have certain stuff installed on your machine, but assuming you're starting from scratch, it's going to download all the emulators, some Visual Basic, C++ stuff, themes, and configuration files. It could take a while, so while you're waiting, maybe leave a weird comment on the video to confuse the people who skipped over this part. I don't know, how about your favorite in-person arcade experience? I remember one time my aunt got a couple rolls of quarters and we went to the arcade at the local truck stop. They had a couple dozen cabinets, a couple pinball machines, a claw machine, and even some of those flight sim and racer models. We probably spent about 2 hours in there until the quarters ran out, and it was a blast. Anyway, once the installation is over, you'll need to add your ROMs and your BIOS files. Now I'm reusing an SD card that already has all that stuff, but if you need to start from scratch, be sure to back up all your old games onto some sort of digital media. There's a myriad, a myriad of options for that sort of thing, and you can also back them up to your personal cloud, effectively creating some sort of internet archive of all of your legally acquired old games. Once you have all those games, drop them into the corresponding folders that EmuDeck set up for you, and the same thing goes for the BIOS files. If you're not sure what files go where, there are written guides on the EmuDeck site. Once you get all your files onto the Ally, then you can go and open up Emulation Station, and it'll have all your games in an easy-to-navigate format that will be very familiar to anyone who's ever messed around with Raspberry Pis or Linux handhelds or even Android devices with the ESDE front end. You can load Emulation Station through Steam, or you can add it to the One Game launcher by navigating to the ESDX executable. It's not super apparent, it's hidden in appdata/roaming/emudeck/emulation station DE. I prefer the widget route rather than loading Steam, just because I don't want to open a front end to open a front end to open a game. This is a hair cleaner, but honestly, I wish they'd just allow you to throw the EXE into the full screen experience directly, but we're probably going to have to wait for a future enhancement. Installing a standalone emulator like Eden is even easier than EmuDeck. You just navigate to the website or the GitHub page, download it, and then unzip it to a folder. Open up the executable, do your initial controller and graphics configurations, make sure you add the location of your ROM so the emulator knows where to look, and you're done. And if you want to add a standalone emulator like Eden into the full screen experience, you can do it using that widget we installed earlier in the video, One Game Launcher. Let's talk about alternatives to Windows real quick. This video is already pretty long, so I'm not going to do a complete dual boot Bazzite tutorial section, but suffice to say, if you love this device but you're still not crazy about the full screen experience, or Windows in general, or maybe all your stuff's already through Steam, and you don't mess around with GOG or Epic or Game Pass, then yeah, Bazzite might be the move. It's fairly easy to do as long as you have a solid USB-C flash drive and know how to use Balena Etcher, and you can basically turn this into an Xbox branded Steam Deck. Let me know in the comments if you want a dedicated video on that. I'll do it. I'm crazy. I'll do it. Well, Gary, the clock on the wall says it's time for What Did We Learn? And we learned that with the recent price drop down to under $500, the Xbox Ally might have been an attractive enough value proposition to end up under your Christmas tree this year. And with a new and powerful device like this in your hands, you probably have a lot of questions about how to set it up. And that's honestly why I made the video. Hopefully you all learned some quick hints for setting up Armory Crate, how to make sure you got all your updates, how to grab games from a wide variety of sources, and how to add all your favorite old and maybe not so old games on here with EmuDeck. I really hope you found this guide helpful, and if you did, then I hope you'll consider liking and subscribing. We're staggering our way towards 100,000 subs, and I really just want a stupid YouTube plaque for my wall. Won't you please help? It's so easy. Just hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons. You know you want to. The temptation to do it is overwhelming.
Just press the button.
Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.